Having a long-term yoga practice will teach you the importance of breathing. Breathing in yoga is the most important factor. It is more important than the poses themselves, the asana, the pranayama, the breathing exercises in yoga are far more important. And part of the reason they're far more important is because it's what you take with you. When you leave a yoga class, it means that your breathing rate has changed. It means you've altered the ratio of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your bloodstream. You've probably helped balance your parasympathetic and sympathetic response. You're no longer in fight or flight. You've induced calm in yourself. Years ago, when I first took a yoga class, it had nothing to do with breathing. It had nothing to do with spiritual pursuits. It had to do with the fact that I had back pain, intractable, insufferable back pain, ongoing. The sort of thing that felt like somebody was sticking an ice pick in my upper back at times. Often this got to maybe a 6 or a 7 on a pain scale, meaning 10 is going to the hospital, 0 is no pain. Pretty constantly it could be at a 6 or a 7. It was something that gathered and harnessed all of my mental focus. My work became more difficult, relationships became more difficult, dealing with parents became more difficult, relationships, all the things you have to do in daily life were more nerve-wracking because of this pain that I experienced. So I went to a yoga class. I had exhausted Swedish and deep tissue massage. I'd had every Swedish and deep tissue massage from here to kingdom come, and I still wasn't 100%. The reason I chose yoga was because a class costs $10 at the time. And I went for a series of 3. The yoga teacher would lead us through poses, and we would get into a pose. And the sense in my body was of an edge of discomfort. Not pain. Not anything that would injure me, but my legs were working, my hamstrings were stretching, things in my body were being used in a way they were unaccustomed to, and there was internal resistance. And the teacher would say, breathe. She'd build us up through a pose and then say, breathe. Well, at the end of the 3rd class, in a week, so it might have been a Monday, Wednesday, Friday that I went. At the end of the 3rd class, I walked out when class had finished, and I stood in the parking lot. And I realized that I was different, that something had shifted. The only way I can describe it is that to me at the time it felt like I was high, like I was inebriated on something. But it didn't have the qualities that you have when you drink too much, or you have coffee and you feel buzzed. When I describe it to people, I tell them it felt like I was driving a car cross country. And as you sit in the car, there are bugs that will eventually splatter on the windshield. If you do this long enough without cleaning the windshield, and temperature and weather conditions are bad enough, it feels like you could drive and almost have to squint to be able to try to see through the windshield. When you wash it and finally clean all of that bug splatter off, your eyes relax the window doesn't even seem to be there because it allows such a clear view out that out there and in here are a little bit less. That boundary is more fluid. You can see straight through it. That is the easiest description I have for what I felt like that day. It felt like I had done something to my body that cleaned off the windshield for the first time in a very long time. And I felt high, quote unquote, but grounded. I felt calm and serene. My body felt less achy. I felt taller and refreshed. And it was then that I decided whatever I had done in that class, I wanted more of. Had to have it. No questions. Whatever I had done was something that I wanted to feel every day, at every moment if possible. Because there were no side effects. It wasn't like drinking and you have a hangover the next day, or drinking too much coffee and feeling like you crashed. That feeling felt like it built up through the class and then permeated the rest of my day, lightly. So there was sort of maybe a peak experience and then it dropped down. But I could go to class again and experience something similar. Well, now, 8+ years later, that feeling is more of what I have every day. The roller coaster ride isn't always as strong because wherever I was so discordant, so unharmonious, that I could very quickly bring things into harmony for this quick transition from one state to another, mentally, internally. Now, my overall level is higher. It maybe plateaus a bit more, depending on my practice, but it builds up in my everyday life. The breathing has become something I do every day. When I work on clients, I breathe. When I snuggle up with my wife, I breathe. When I'm playing poker online, I curse and try to breathe. Over time, what will happen with a regular yoga practice is that your health will improve incrementally. You begin the process that Eric Schiffman details in his book, Yoga, the Spirit and Practice of Moving into Stillness. When people ask me if I meditate, I often laugh and say yes. They will ask me then, what do you meditate on? And 9 times out of 10, my answer will be that I meditate on back pain. Because when I sit down, I can still feel discomfort in my upper back and my cervical spine, sometimes in my low back, depending on the day, depending on what's going on. So that becomes my focus. The physical yoga practice helps me begin to release those physical restrictions, to create better posture, stronger muscles that are more supple and pliable so I can sit down. The sort of bliss that you feel in a movement practice in yoga then begins to calm and slow until you begin to meditate. Yoga is a moving meditation. You're harnessing your mind, you're harnessing your awareness to lengthen through a pose, to open the chest, to create good breathing, good health, so you can sit and meditate. That is the purpose of Hatha Yoga. When I got into yoga, I had no interest in meditation. None. Meditate? What is that? Meditation was something I had seen in little figurines of the Buddha. And I said, what's that? He's just blanking out? There was no concept in my mind of what that could mean. But through a physical practice, what I noticed was you began to go deep into yourself, whatever that is. You became quiet, you became still, and the sort of bliss that you experienced, the good sensation, the good feeling of wholeness that permeated your being, called you to be more and more quiet, more still, so that the movement of sitting slowly became the long, solid, integrated posture of sitting, breathing, and being still. The more quiet you become inside, the more you notice subtle nuance, both within yourself and outside, sort of like the car we were talking about where you cleaned the windshield. The meditation you experience is gradual, much like your yoga practice. I don't think it should feel forced. You don't have to sit down and meditate. You can meditate wherever you are. You can meditate in your car. It simply means that you're drawing your focus down to a single point. In my case, that was ow. This was my single point of focus. The pain, the intractable pain that I experienced became the meditation. It became focus on this 7 on a pain scale. And let's bring it down to a 5. My physical discomfort became the very thing that fueled my practice. I had no choice. I could simply experience pain, or I could work with it and lessen it through the practice of yoga. It drove, it fueled my practice. And it continues to this day. The pain is much, much less. Recently someone asked me what I experience on a pain scale. And I was so taken aback because I ask clients this all the time, but I never take a self-questioning stance. Well, what do I feel? And I had to think about it. And I said, I think at its worst, I sometimes feel that I'm at a 4. But the reason I don't think anything of it is when I feel that I'm at a 4, what do? Well, even if I'm on my computer, I do a back bend over the couch. If I'm working with clients, I stretch in a certain way. If I'm teaching a class, I do half downward dog on the wall. So I quickly bring that 4 down to a 3 or a 2. If I have a long practice in my studio, that means I can easily go from a 4 down to a 1 or sometimes a 0. So the pain itself doesn't control my life anymore. That physical discomfort has been released. It has been processed. My teacher was pain. It was my own physical discomfort. And having some modicum of control over that meant that I was no longer depressed. My suffering in life decreased. Anxiety was lessened. And from that vantage point, a physical practice, hatha yoga, became something that infused the rest of my life, because I didn't make my financial decisions in stress or pain. I didn't make my relationship decisions in stress or pain. I didn't make my work decisions in the same. That sense of clarity, where we clean the windshield so we can see clearly, allowed you to make better decisions for your life. An ongoing yoga practice will allow that. It's pretty good for exercise. Yoga allows you to experience who you truly are and begin questioning your assumptions. Sometimes assumptions that allow us to dwell in ignorance. Yoga allows a process of questioning those, of cleaning off the windshield so we can see clearly. And I recommend that you practice. Go at your own pace. Don't harm your physical form. Don't harm your body. Learn to listen to your arm, to your joints, to your muscles, to your spine, to your breathing. And the more you learn to listen to yourself, the more quiet you become internally. I'll see you again soon on robertgardnerwellness.com.